Hi everybody, welcome to Lena Unedited. Before we get going, if you can do that fun thing of liking and subscribing, and when you want to make some comments, all of it helps me grow the channel, so I appreciate that. And always let me know if there's a topic you'd like me to talk about. Anyway, today's topic is it's a really interesting one actually. It's about the courage to be bad at something new. Like, I think in business, we constantly need to be, I think I've said this before, a work in progress. And part of being a work in progress is being brave enough to try something new and have courage to do that. And, you know, if you try something new, there is a possibility that you're going to be bad at it. And so it's kind of, today's about discussing that area of bravery, trying something new. So one of the first things I wanted to sort of ask myself is, at what point or when do we sort of stop giving ourselves permission to being a beginner? As kids, we are expected to learn by getting things wrong, as much wrong as they are right. But somewhere along the way, as we're growing from childhood into teenage years on into adulthood, a lot of us start sort of almost believing we have to get it right the first time and we should know what we're doing because we're adults. The reality is we are constantly learning. I mean, we live in a society where technology is changing. Society itself is changing. We're changing. There's a constant change going on both externally and internally with most of us all of the time. So why is it that the majority of us start getting scared and worried about starting something new and from scratch? I mean, there's that old saying, isn't there, that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, I say bollocks to that. 53 years of age, I'm constantly learning new things, finding things like, you know, the world of AI. There's a lot of people my age do find it a bit scary. Do I find it scary? I don't think I find it scary necessarily, but, you know, like everybody else, it's a new thing I'm having to learn super fast in order to not be left behind. And as a business owner, I certainly don't want to be left behind. But then at which point does that kind of permission to be a beginner stop? Well, to a certain extent, that's going to not be surprising to some of you, I kind of get off on being a beginner with something. I love learning new things. I find it exciting to try something new. But I'm also okay with failing. For example, something really interesting. There's a reason why I called my podcast show, particularly this channel, Lena Unedited, is because I didn't know how to edit anything and I didn't want it to stop me from getting the channel off on its feet. So I gave myself permission to do that while I learnt how to edit. Here's the thing. My good friend, Dave Brown, who is my larger podcast producer, and he does the editing for me, and also my friend Chris Healy helps me with some of my editing as well. Dave has taken me on a couple of learning sessions. I've been watching YouTube channels. I can't fucking figure it out. Useless at it. So I've just gone, do you know what? Rather than stressing myself out and being anxious about it, I've just been okay with not being any good at it. Like, I usually pick things up really quickly, especially when it comes to technology. Although I'm not a technology person, I'm usually reasonably quick at picking up on new softwares and new ways of doing things. I just haven't been able to get my head around it. I know what I want the end result to look like in my podcasts and in my videos and stuff, but I just haven't got the hang of it at all. I've been bloody useless at it, and do you know what? It's okay. So I think part of it is I didn't set out to fail. Like, I don't like failure. And anybody that says, oh, you know, you can't succeed unless you fail, or you must enjoy failing, well, oh, fuck that. I don't enjoy failing. I don't think anybody does. But I do think you need to be okay with sometimes trying something and realizing either you're not made for it and it's not for you, But at least I gave it a go. And I gave it a damn good go. I kept trying it. It's not how my brain works. So I've just had to go, do you know what? There's other people out there that can do it better than me, and that's okay. So I think there's a little bit of me, well, there's quite a lot of me that has thrown grenades into my life multiple times. So I'm not afraid to start again or to readdress something or start from scratch, you know? And I think you do have to, I'm not saying get over yourself, because that makes me sound like I'm a pompous twat, but you do have to kind of go, not to sort of, and I'm going to be really clear, I do feel the fear of new things, but I still do it anyway, because there's kind of a rush at the end of it, like when you've tried something new and it's worked out. That's pretty cool, actually. So, but a lot of people don't feel that. And, you know, talking about fear, you've got to ask yourself, what is it that you're genuinely afraid of when you try something new? I mean, you've got to ask yourself, is it the failure itself? Is it the fear of failure? So therefore you don't even want to try anything new. Is it looking foolish? Is it about being judged? Is it about wasting time? Or is it discovering I'm not as capable of something as I thought or as you thought? And I think those are really interesting questions to ask. I think everybody's answer is probably going to be different. Like, look, I don't like failure. I like being good at things, but I don't not try something just because I'm afraid of failing. Am I afraid of looking foolish? Nah, don't really give a shit about that. Being judged? No. Definitely, I hate wasting time. I like being productive. And I think there's definitely a big element of not want to try into something new because I think it's going to be a waste of time and it might be easier to get somebody else to do it. And discovering that I'm not good at something is not a good feeling either. So definitely I think those, in the fear factor, there's definitely an element of failure coming into it for me anyway, and a huge amount of it is about I don't want to have wasted my time. I'm busy, I've got lots of shit to do. What happens if I go down the track and it just completely was a complete waste of my time? Which happens, and you've got to be willing to take that, I think, otherwise you're not going to learn anything. And then, you know, you're going to ask yourself, you know, if that fear is holding your back, how many opportunities can you miss because you wanted to be good before you even were willing to start? And interestingly enough, in my coaching and consulting career, I have noticed that there's been a lot of people who have held back because they wanted it to be perfect or absolutely spot on before they began. And I was talking to my friend Sonia Whaley about this yesterday. She's got an amazing podcast called Pitch Your Plant Up. Plant your pitch up. Oh, brain, it's not working very well. Sorry, Sonia, I completely balled that up. I will stick it in the notes because I get that wrong every time, and it's my silly brain, not her branding. But it was really cool. And we were talking about yesterday about editing and so forth, and about the fact that, you know, sometimes we do put off doing things because you want to get it absolutely perfect. But I quoted something that got quoted to me years ago, which is it's better to get something out 80% of what it should be versus 100% of nothing going out, right? So it's why I've been, I guess, been brave enough to launch Lena Unedited based on its name, because of the fact that I wanted to get going and I didn't want my fear to get in the way. And I think there are moments in life where, you know, if we aren't willing to start again, you know, in the world that we're living in, people are having to readdress careers. People are having to change directions really, really quickly and upskill themselves and going in a different direction, because, you know, there's a whole lot of industries that are getting decimated by AI, by other technologies. I mean, that is unfortunately progress to a certain extent. It's happened in the Industrial Revolution. It happened when the internet came along. It's definitely happened with robotics. It's, there's lots of things that have impacted that. And, so many people are having to reshape their careers. Our businesses, I am so glad that I've got the attitude of it's okay to be a work in progress, because our businesses constantly are having to change and evolve. And if they don't, we're going to get left behind. The world moves on. Our audiences, to a certain extent, change what their needs are. And we need to be swift to be able to keep up with them. Are there hobbies that we've never started because we were a little bit too scared to start something new? Have there been, and I definitely know this to be a fact, not for myself so much, but friends that, they've not started new relationships because they were too scared to go in a different direction with a relationship. So some people will stay in marriages and long-term partnerships simply because they're too scared to break something and start something new. I'm not advising this is people to break their relationships, by the way. I think that there's something about working on things as well that I do believe in. But sometimes relationships, whether they be friendships or romantic relationships, can work to the end of their lifespan, and sometimes it's time to end and move to something else. It could be that fear has got in the way of, starting something new around public speaking, or, it's holding people back on creating new content, or just generally learning new skills. So you do have to ask yourself, is the fear of starting something new just because you're worried about being judged or looking foolish or, failing in some way? Has there been opportunities, if you look back, and also looking forward right now, are there opportunities out there that you're missing because you wanted to be too good at something before you were willing to begin something? Which I think is a question that we all kind of need to ask ourselves. So when I look back on the things I'm proudest of right now, I've got to ask myself, was I any good when I first started? Well, when it comes to my recording, I remember the first time I did something for YouTube for FTSQ, and it was back when I had Oliver Lapsley working for me, and he was doing my editing and things, and he was popping things up on YouTube and so forth. And I did a live workshop which we recorded, and because there wasn't a direct audience in front of me, I remember showing it to a client at the time, and they said, "It's not you, Lena. It's very dull. It's not very you." And I look at that first recording way back in, I think it was 2018 it was, and I now look at what I'm doing now. It's a completely different thing. So if I'd stopped at that point, and, I'm really proud of Lena Unedited. I'm speaking my truth. I'm hopefully telling interesting stories. I'm engaging with people. I'm offering a place for people to go and listen to something that might be helpful for them. For me, I'm really proud of the fact that I've developed that. And I'm proud of the podcast that I've done for the other channels of FTSQ, the art side of things and the nonconformist side of things. Those two channels are available on my YouTube channel, by the way. On my YouTube FTSQ podcast channel has multiple channels and playlists. And, I look at overall where I've come from and, where I'm now at, and the help that people like Dave Brown have helped me with to develop my interview skills and just gaining in confidence. I'm going to be really honest with you. When I did the first podcast with guests, and I then did Lena Unedited, which is me just talking to you guys now, I was bricking it, man. It may not have come across like that, but inside I was absolutely bricking it. But I don't regret having started, even though I really didn't know what the hell I was doing. And there's lots of things when I look back like that I'm really good at. I remember doing my first brand positioning, it definitely developed and evolved to a point where I'm pretty amazing at it now. And when I first started, I'd only seen other people do it. Nobody taught me how to do a brand positioning, and I had to figure it out. Again, bricking it. Didn't know really what I was doing. Trust my instincts. So thank God I'm good at trusting my gut. And I think I'm really proud of that. When I started my first business, I didn't know what I was... Actually, no, did I know what I was doing? To a certain degree, I did know what I was doing because I'd seen my parents running their own businesses their whole life, but it was still my first experience. So there's lots of things that, had I waited until I was the best, I probably wouldn't have started. And it's really interesting because the thing that's probably always set me slightly apart from the average female career person and business owner is that we know for a fact that, I think it's something like, men will apply for a job when they only understand 50% of the job description and know how to do it. Women tend to only apply for a job when they know how to do 100% of the job. I've always been like the blokes. I've always been, do you know what? I trust myself enough that I'll learn fast enough. I'll apply for a job that I haven't necessarily done all of the things on the job description, but I know I'll figure it out pretty quickly. And it's not that I'm lying. I just trust myself that I'll be able to do it. And I think that is quite unusual from the statistics, I understand. So maybe that's part of why I'm not afraid to start new things and why I actually enjoy starting new things and beginning from scratch. There's a sort of there's almost like a trailblazer feeling that kind of comes over me. I'm not a trailblazer, I don't think, but there's that feeling of like, oh my God, I'm about to start something new. Eek, this is amazing. So I think there is definitely an element of that. So then, yeah, looking back, I think there's a huge amount of things I'm really proud of that I wasn't any good at the beginning, but then got going, and then I've turned out reasonably good at. And I wouldn't have felt that feeling of pride if I hadn't even given it a go. So you got to ask yourself, going back to that first question, why is it that we celebrate kids being okay to learn from their mistakes, but then we, for some reason, partway through the life that we have, we all of a sudden start expecting adults to avoid making mistakes altogether? What is it that changes as we grow and get older, and where does that pressure come from? I would imagine that it's probably coming from two major directions. I think there's externally, people expect us to get things right the first time. I think we're always expected to be running at full capacity all of the time and being perfect and what have you. But I also think there's an internal pressure that we give ourselves. I definitely, as a perfectionist, which we've talked about before, I expect high things from myself. And I remember my mum saying to me, when you went to school, you came back after the first week and you were just like, why have they not taught me how to read and write and everything after a week? I wanted to be perfect after a week. Well, the reality is that's not the case, and that's not really the case in most circumstances and most things that we're learning from scratch and from new. I don't know if I know the answer of why we stop celebrating learning mistakes. I think maybe it's that consequence and impact definitely changes. I think the results and the consequences of getting it wrong, there's more risk, I guess, at risk when we get older. Money can be at risk, our careers can be at risk, our reputations can be at risk. I think there's a whole lot of things that there's a higher risk if you start doing something new. And I do think that's why a lot of people, although they don't enjoy the industry they're in, or maybe don't enjoy the job they're in, they stay in it because it's kind of better the devil you know than the devil you don't kind of thing. I'm of the opposite opinion, though. If things aren't working for me, don't get me wrong, I'm not a person that gives up on things, but I am a person that once I understand that it's not working, and and I'm honest with myself, I know it's never going to work, although it's difficult, I will end the situation. not in a way that hopefully will negatively impact other people. So I will slowly withdraw from things or a project or a thing if it's just not right for me, rather than just continuing because I don't want to let other people down. I think that's something I've got better at over the years. And at the end of the day, you've got to do what's right for you. But I do think adults avoid mistakes altogether because as you get older, there's just more to risk financially, etc. And that's why I think we do need to be kinder to ourselves. So I think one of the impacts on society around making mistakes that's probably impacted us more than anything in the last 100 years has been social media and our willingness to be seen to be in a learning phase as opposed to being the top of our game. I think social media has driven a world where people think that the only things that you can put out has to be absolute polished, absolute perfection, no messiness, and I guess a perfect life being put up online. And we're hearing over and over again there's influencers or people that are putting stuff up online, and we think they've got it all together, and they really don't. And you know what, has social media and that sort of exposure that people of my age when we were younger just didn't have in the big wide world as much as we do today, how much impact has social media had on that willingness to be in a place of learning as opposed to having it all together? I do think that is the case. I personally am quite happy, if you're a long-term follower of mine on Lena Unedited particularly, but if any of you have known me for a long time, I'm not really too bothered about that. Because I think whatever you do, you cannot be afraid of starting something new, for sure. So I guess you then have to, and reputation is really important to me, by the way, which is, why you've got to ask yourself, what would become more possible if we stopped trying to just protect our reputations and started embracing curiosity instead? Now, reputation is important. Of course it is, and I'm not going to say it's not. But to balance it more with a love of curiosity, I think, and playfulness, and I've got other podcasts for Lena Unedited about why we stop playing and why we stop being curious about things. And I think, if we worried less about what other people think of us and started embracing more playfulness and more curiosity, you got to ask yourself, what doors would open up, what opportunities would come your way, and what freedom might you actually discover from having let some of that holding on so tight that you can't be flexible go. And I think, the older I get, the more I'm reverting to trying to let that playful curiosity come back, giving myself the headspace and the opportunity to try something new. Like, I'm really proud that I tried doing editing, and I'm also okay that I failed. I gave it a go. I would have been more annoyed if I hadn't given it a go and then just started getting other people doing it and paid them to do it, and then realised that I could have saved some money doing it myself, whatever. I'm okay with the fact that I'm paying people to do it because I know I'm absolutely shit at it. So, yeah, that's okay. But I'm really proud that I gave it a go. But I'm equally okay with not being any good at it. I think that's absolutely fine. I'm not embarrassed to admit it. So I guess it brings us to a question that I kind of always try to round things off at the end of a Lena Unedited. And that question is asking you guys, what new thing would I want to encourage someone listening to this episode to begin today, even if they're terrible at it? I think I want to give you all permission to start something before you're ready. Not that I'm the person that's actually giving you permission. I think you need to give yourselves permission, actually. I think pick something that you've been afraid to give a go. Track how it's gone. Allow yourself to be vulnerable in a way of like people not seeing you just in the perfect state, but see you in a learning state. There is something inspiring about watching people that are brave enough to relearn something, brave enough to shift directions and try something in a different way. Try the same thing but doing it differently. You know, there's a whole lot of different things that you can do. Some might be like me and just within reason jump off a cliff. Sometimes I'm okay with it, sometimes doing that. You know, at the end of the day, we've all got our line that we cross and don't cross, but I do want to encourage everybody listening today, especially it's the weekend, try something new. Try something that you've been a little bit afraid to get going on. And if you need to explain to the world that you're in beta with an idea or you're trying something new because you want to learn as you go, like, I think that's okay to do that. Even experts, I think, should be okay with openly saying, I don't know how to do something, or I haven't tried that. I want to give it a go. I want to be clear with everybody. Like, I remember I've launched different programs. I have a leadership development program. I'd never done one before, as either as a leader or as a person taking coaching through a leadership development program. So what I did was I worked with an amazing friend. I'm not going to reveal who that is because he may not want me explaining what it was that we were doing through. But what was really cool is he knew that it was a beta test for me. He knew I hadn't done a leadership development program, but he trusted me, which was amazing. So what he allowed me to do is I gave him a 50% discount on a 6-month leadership development program. And what it enabled me to do is, in return, the value exchange for the 50% off was that he would feed back to me every single time we would do a session or we'd walk through certain things. I would get his feedback and go, that worked, that didn't, that questioning worked, that didn't. So maybe what it is, the thing that you want to do in your business and your career, you need to be okay with maybe beta testing something, giving somebody a discount so that you get feedback. Like, there's lots of different ways that you can do things and start from scratch. Try that new hobby. Try that new thing that you wanted to try that you've been putting off for ages. And I bet you all of you have got that one thing that you've been trying to think about doing, but you've had just that little bit of fear has crept in. Be curious. Have a play. If there is something that's hugely risky, then ask yourself, is there a way you can manage the risk or reduce the risk with a beta test or something else, a different way of doing anything, or just trust yourself? You know, I think everybody has that line in the sand and only you will know what that is. So I think you don't become confident and then start. I think you start and then confidence catches up. So yeah, that's me for today. I hope you've enjoyed my chat about the courage to be bad at something new. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you try something new. Yeah, let us know what that was. Anyway, thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks for listening. See ya.